As the 2025 NFL draft gets closer, it's getting pretty clear who the number one pick is. There was plenty of chatter of if it could be Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, but no! It's a quarterback league. It's going to be the best quarterback available, and that's Cam Ward. The Titans are in deep quarterback need and need to escape Will Levis, and Cam Ward is going to give them that chance. The rest of the draft is pretty unknown, and there are other big quarterback names that will probably go higher in a weaker class, like Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. But at least we know number one, or we think we do. Ward makes sense, and while no, he might not be the talent worth that pick, it all comes down to quarterback. And I'd argue he's the best available. He's played well at every school he's gone to, and yeah, he has some issues, but for the Titans, it's going to be hard to pass on the top quarterback in the class when he's clearly the best there. I'll trust in the process, and who knows, maybe it's a perfect fit in Tennessee. Ward already has a lot of experience, but his journey to becoming an NFL quarterback, or specifically to the number one overall pick, is pretty unorthodox. Cam Ward grew up in West Columbia, Texas, where he went to Columbia High School. High school football in Texas is obviously very different than most places in the country, and it kind of gets a little weird for him. As a junior, he threw for 1,070 yards and 7 touchdowns and rushed for 4 touchdowns. He only threw 124 passes on the year, and then only averaged 12 passes per game as a senior. Well, why? Because Columbia ran a wing T offense, where obviously throwing the ball wasn't very common. It probably didn't help Cam Ward get some offers, and he ended up only getting one from Incarnate Word, a Division I FCS program. His bio there has him as Cameron Ward, so it sounds like at some point he was going by Cameron before it was just Camp. It also has his listed relatives. He has 3 siblings, one ran track at Houston Baptist, and he's related to both Quandre Diggs, a 3-time Pro Bowl safety, and cornerback Quentin Jammer, who played cornerback for the Chargers for over a decade. He's also cousins with Kyron Jones, Virginia Tech's quarterback. Now, Ward's first year with the Cardinals was a pretty weird one. It was postponed to spring 2021 because of COVID, and that's when the FCS did their season, and they only played 6 games, but he was incredible. Ward passed for 2,260 yards and 24 touchdowns, the most in the FCS. He had 4 interceptions and 2 rushing touchdowns. Those numbers really don't pop right off the page, but with the context of it being a 6-game season, that's pretty insane. He won the Jerry Rice Award as the most outstanding freshman at the FCS level. He was again great as a sophomore at Incarnate Word, being named Southland Conference Player of the Year after he threw for 4,648 yards and 47 touchdowns with 10 interceptions. Right after finishing back-to-back seasons in 1 calendar year at Incarnate Word, he enrolled at Washington State in January 2022. He ended up winning the starting job and had a good season for the Cougars. He passed for 3,231 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, while also rushing for 5 touchdowns. It was a 7-6 season for the Cougars, but it came with some pretty cool highlights. They beat number 19 Wisconsin to start 2-0. They also lost a crazy shootout to number 15 Oregon, 44-41. That was a wild game, and that team had Bo Nix, Bucky Irving, Troy Franklin, all those guys leading that offense. Washington State then played in the LA Bowl, but did get clapped 29-6 to Fresno State and Jake Haener. The next year, the Cougars declined to 5-7, but were ranked early in the year as high as number 13. Washington State knocked off number 19 Wisconsin, yes, again, which is kind of crazy, and number 14 Oregon State. Ward ended up throwing for 3,735 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, and also rushed for 8 touchdowns. Once December rolled around, Ward hopped back in the portal, where he was a rated 4-star and the number 4 quarterback in the portal. At one point, Cam Ward had even declared for the 2024 NFL Draft, but he couldn't pass up the chance to play at Miami with his last year of eligibility. Granted, that class was also super tough. He made the right call. In the age of NIL, it really wasn't that much of a crazy decision to kind of be going back and forth, and it's safe to say that he did make the right decision, because now he's the expected 1st overall pick after a great season on a great team. Miami went 10-3, and as a Tech fan, I do want it to be known that it should be 9-4, if not for the most phantom Hail Mary overturn I've ever seen, but I won't get too far into that. The Hurricanes were really good, and the ACC really needed them to be as such a big brand, and they really needed them to make the college football playoff. Miami was 9-0 in early November, and then the wheels fell off. They lost to Georgia Tech 28-23 on November 9th, and then lost a wild shootout to Syracuse 42-38 on November 30th, and that knocked Miami out of the ACC championship game and completely ruined the season. No conference championship game led to no college football playoff, and instead they played in the Pop-Tarts Bowl against Iowa State, where the Hurricanes lost 42-41. Now, Ward did start that bowl game, which is rare to see an NFL prospect do, but it's a little bit complicated. See, he played. He threw 3 touchdown passes to break the Division I record for career passing touchdowns at 158. In my opinion, that's a COVID record. Fifth year shouldn't really count towards that, but Case Keenum has had the record since 2011, and Dylan Gabriel actually tied him last year, again, because of COVID, but those are all FBS level touchdowns, so they're tied for the FBS mark. Ward obviously did it at the FCS level at Incarnate Word. Anyways, Ward did sit out after that first half of a close bowl game, which does make sense to be annoyed about, but I'd also argue it's not Ward's fault. There wasn't much incentive to play, and if he got hurt, he wouldn't be going number 1 overall and would have lost a lot of money. Ward had already proved enough. He finished 4th in Heisman Trophy voting, was the ACC Player of the Year, and won the Manning Award as the top quarterback in the country. He passed for 4,313 yards, 39 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions while rushing for 7 touchdowns. Ward took the gamble, staying back at Miami for a year, and definitely made the right call. Even with being the clear number 1 pick at this point, there are some questions about if that's the right decision or not. It's a weaker quarterback draft, and you have to wonder where he'd get drafted if he was in last year's class. He wouldn't be ahead of Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, or Drake May. I'm willing to bet that. But would he at least be before Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix? I don't know. The NFL has Ward at a 6.39 prospect grade, which falls under being a better than average starter, but under the category of becoming a good starter after just 2 years. It's kind of hard to argue against that. He got the 2nd best production score of any of the combine quarterbacks and was 3rd in athleticism, which does put him at 1st overall for total score by Next Gen Stats. Ward is a gunslinger and does have a good arm. He's a smart dude who can read the field at time and use his legs, but he really won't do it that much. People don't really realize Ward isn't really that much of a dual threat. He more so can run when he has to, but he's much, much closer to being a pocket passer. There are a lot of positives in his game without a doubt, but there are a lot of red flags too. He really struggled to disguise coverages at times. He can make some very reckless plays, whether it's throwing cross field or just doing a horrible bad backward scramble. The talent's there, but he's far from a perfect or even elite prospect, I think, which is what makes him such a risky pick. His future is really going to come down to the Titans and how well they can truly develop him if that is actually where he goes in the draft. The Titans are an interesting landing spot with 2nd-year head coach Brian Callahan and a less than ideal supporting cast. The wide receiver 1 is currently Calvin Ridley, which is a great, but it'll play. Traylon Burks is there, which also doesn't exactly spark confidence, but we'll have to see how it plays out. Tennessee brought in Van Jefferson at wide receiver, and I think the big moves for a rookie quarterback were definitely signing Kevin Zeitler at right guard on a 1-year deal to improve the line, but much more importantly, getting a needed left tackle, Dan Moore Jr. They really had to overpay for him and just pay the bad suck tax, but a 4-year, $82 million deal is what had to happen, and the Titans had to do whatever it took. Everything is about the future now for the Titans, and priority number 1 is the development of Cam Ward if and when he goes 1st overall at the 2025 draft.